Well, the vast majority of the individuals that are out there protesting were there peacefully. There were some in the group that were a little bit more antagonistic, that were provoking some of the officers. Some individuals that decided at one point to throw rocks at the motor officers. And there was a confrontation between some of the protesters and some folks that were against the protest, that were on the side of the street there in the area of Shaw and Chestnut. So overall, I think they were there for the purpose of protesting peacefully, and our job was to make sure they had a peaceful protest, to make sure that not only were they protected, but the motorists were protected. When they made the decision to go out into the street and to take over the streets, that became a safety concern. But we knew that was going to happen. We, in fact, had told the organizer in advance that they were not allowed to go out on the street. As long as they remained on the sidewalks, everything was okay. Unfortunately, he made that decision. In fact, he announced to the crowd to go into the street. So I would imagine in the very near future we'll be following up with some enforcement action against him. In fact, I know we are. And there will be others that we have enforcement action on as well, people that we videotaped in the crowd, people that were in cars, allowing people to ride on their cars, having the doors open. We will be following up with vehicle code violation citations as well. And but overall, I thought it was very peaceful. Did not have to arrest any of the protesters. At one point, I thought we might have to when there was a confrontation that occurred when they were trying to get onto the freeway at Bullard and 41. And fortunately, we were able to, with the assistance of the CHP, who did an incredible job of forming a skirmish line on the on-ramp and not allowing anybody on the freeway. There was some confrontation, some pushing, some shoving. Emotions got high at that point, but for the most part, we were able to get them back onto Bullard Avenue. We knew that they were going to be going mobile. We knew that they were going to go in the street. We knew that they were going to be marching. We just didn't know where they were going, and I don't believe they knew either. And so we were able to stay ahead of them on social media. We also were monitoring their Facebook Live post here from our command center. So we really knew where they were going in advance, which gave our officers in the field an upper hand. Social media was the tool that allowed us to know the direction, where they were heading when they knew the direction. Many in the group were lost. In fact, it was somewhat of a leaderless group because there were people that wanted to go one direction and someone else wanted to go another direction. Some of them wanted to go over to Fresno State, some of them wanted to go to Fashion Fair, some of them wanted to go to Clovis Police Department. Ultimately, they did two of the three, but we were aware of that in advance, and that's how we knew where to position our motor officers for the most part and what streets to shut down. And then we had a contingency of officers that were in the background that we were waiting, called our REACT team.
Okay.
In the event we had any type of incident, we had additional officers that we could utilize, including our mobile field force. We had been receiving through open sources and the social media threats against just generally law enforcement, but also Fresno Police Department. We had also, the night before, had a number of calls into the dispatch center, mostly comments that were filled with hatred and anger towards law enforcement. There were a couple of them that we perceived to be potential threats. We followed up on those. And then we also followed up on a social media post that was a threat to officers, specifically a credible threat. We followed up on that and contacted that individual and determined that he did not pose the threat that he represented on social media, and he apologized. So, that's the message, really. We want to let people know the things they say on social media are being monitored by the police department. They're being monitored by a lot of people, and we take those threats seriously. And it is against the law to make threats against law enforcement in that manner. It's not about freedom of speech when you cross the line and you make specific threats about people being injured or hurt, whether it's a police officer or citizens. At that time, law enforcement gets involved. And it's not hard to track people down via social media. So we were able to do that. The threats that were received were people that were calling from Fresno, but also from outside of Fresno. And those are the ones that are here locally, the ones that create the most concern for us. we know as a result of Dallas that there's someone out there that is in our community that would love to replicate what occurred in Dallas. That is a copycat, and will try to outdo the gunman in Dallas. And that's what we have to be alert for. And unfortunately, on the heels of 5 police officers being shot and killed and 7 other police officers being shot and injured, I never heard one word about those police officers yesterday at the protest. And for me, that's shameful. All lives matter.